Okay, now going to a story that I predicted exactly 1 year and 1 month ago when Erin O'Toole decided to run for federal Conservative leadership, and I took one look at who was in Erin O'Toole's inner circle, and I said, oh my God, this guy's not Conservative, he's a red Tory, he is going to stab you in the back immediately on things like security, conservative economic policy, and especially the carbon tax. So bring up the, this is the article in the Toronto Star that sort of came out yesterday. And it's basically an insider report that there's lots of MPs that are worried that Erin O'Toole is going to flip-flop, and start to back a carbon tax or carbon pricing. Now, in Erin O'Toole's defense, this is not a flip-flop. He has always been for the carbon tax. He has sneakily put it in he put carbon pricing in his platform. Right? He had talked about, no to the carbon tax, but I'm going to do this instead. And I'm like, that's a carbon tax. That's exactly carbon. No, it's not. I'm not going to do it. Listen, we got to, he was always mealy-mouthed on it. Okay. I think regular viewers of this show, people who haven't left me over the last year over my fight with Erin O'Toole, understand where I'm going here. If you are new here, let me reiterate, okay? When I learned that Erin O'Toole was likely to become the Conservative leader, when Pierre Poilievre, who was going to run, the article was ready, right, then all of a sudden didn't run. Later I did find out that it was O'Toole's National Director of Field Ops, David Parker, who claimed in text messages that I have seen that he was the one to find dirt on Pierre Poilievre and allegedly blackmail him out of running. That is a claim by people within O'Toole's camp. I decided to say something because I knew O'Toole was not a true blue Tory. And it wasn't just sort of like a conservative puritanism. I can take centrist conservatism, right? Again, like I'm nowhere near as pro-life as most of the people in this building right now, right? I have advocated for, criminal justice reform. I might be further to the left than maybe a lot of people in the Conservative Party in terms of incarceration of non-violent offenders. I can take, not maybe red Toryism, but purple Tories. I'm not this crazy extremist, but I want the Conservative Party to have some conservatism in it if I'm going to vote for it, right? Someone who drags the party, he's not dragging the party to the center. He's dragging the party into the left. And there's a huge difference between dragging to the center and dragging to the left. Now, dragging to the center is code for dragging to the left, but these are two different things, right? If you want to sort of drag in the center, these are sort of maybe dropping, dragging to the center would be sort of, all right, we're not going to publicly, put abortion stuff in our platform. We'll let private members sort of bring private abortion bills, but like in terms of like a, fighting abortion on a, national policy level, by sort of dropping this fight, that's sort of going to the center politically, right? Because you're sort of dropping the fight, right? Going to the left is when you start to adopt and back the policies that the Liberals put in. And this is what O'Toole's doing on the carbon tax. Being pro-carbon tax isn't the center. That's a far-left, radical environmentalist policy that will not help the environment one bit. Now we have to explain why the carbon tax is so stupid, okay? You all know the carbon tax is dumb, or you don't like the carbon tax, or maybe you don't know the exact specifics, but you just don't trust the people putting it in. So what the carbon tax is, it is essentially a tax to punish consumption of, let's say, natural resources, fossil fuels, right? Justin Trudeau finally admitted in the days of the carbon tax that the real purpose of the tax was a deterrence, right? He wants to use the tax to deter people from using carbon-based products. Now, this is completely thrown out the window because he claims that we're all going to make money off the carbon tax with the carbon tax rebates. If you believe that, you just don't understand economics. I cannot help you. If you believe that you're going to make money off a new government tax, oh, child, you are a precious, precious one, and, you should probably be wearing a helmet. What the carbon tax is it is a way of sort of, we'll say, putting a price onto carbon, making sure people don't, use products that have been, tainted with fossil fuels, which is everything, absolutely everything. You have something with plastic in it. Plastic, that's a petroleum product. Do you buy food? Well, food is grown with fossil fuels, right? I've done this before. There are two ways we can make up enough agriculture to feed the world in an efficient manner, right? So if you want to keep feeding people, so your options are pull a Thanos, genocide half the population, Now, a lot of that's going to be the poor people. A lot of that's going to be like sub-Saharan Africa and all that. So, it would be racist to do so. Genocide, this would be a racist genocide. Not one of your good environmentalist genocides, but a racist one, so it's bad. So you have three options here, leftists, if you want to save the planet and sort of go with the mentality of the carbon tax. One, genocide. Just genocide half the people, so then we can meet our farming needs a lot easier. Two, reinstitute slavery. If we reinstitute slavery, then we can take, people that we don't like, undesirables, create some sort of standards or categories. We can enslave them and their children, horribly abuse them for generations, and force them to do our farm work. Now, it's actually not that efficient. Slavery is a really bad economic policy. I don't recommend slavery on a moral or economic level. Or three, we could use fossil fuels. I say three. It has the least amount of genocide and slavery in it, which is usually where I like to go with things. Have you seen, if you see the carbon tax bills of farmers in Saskatchewan, how do you think that we get the food? How do you think we grow the crops in Canada? How do you think we pick the crops? Right? All of this is machines. How do you think any machine in this world runs? Off energy. Where do you think the energy comes from? The electricity ferry? Where do you think the energy from your friggin' electric vehicle comes from? It's electric. Okay, how do we get electricity? Coal. I know that Erin O'Toole sort of understands this. And you know that Erin O'Toole understands this. And I've been saying what the Conservatives need to do is, because what they're going to the left, by giving in to this sort of radical environmentalist policy, saying, listen, all food prices are going to go up because of the carbon tax, right? So the carbon tax rebate they're giving you is on the gas you buy, because that's what people only think. It's like, I don't have a car. Do you take the bus or the subway? Well, fossil fuels. I take the streetcar, fossil fuels. Now, if you want to go from point A to point B, that price is going to increase. Now, if you want products that have been transported from point A to point B, there's going to be a price increase there. That's everything. Then, if you want food, there's going to be a massive price increase in that. And food is also grown and transported from point A to point B. Believe it or not, you don't live on a farm, which means when you buy food that was grown on the farm, it had to come to you somehow. It was not carried by my nephew to you. It was brought by a car or a truck. Those run on fossil fuels. Prices will go up. Now, what the carbon tax essentially is, it's a fourth gas tax instituted in Canada. We have three other gas taxes. They have not done anything to curb consumption of fossil fuels because, again, fossil fuels are an absolute necessity in the society. Now, we can play options, right? You can give up your smartphone and the laptop or whatever you're watching this on to be angry at me. You can give all of that up. And we can live in a world where the technology rivals that of 1754. We can do that. We can do that. We can go back to 1754, get the horses and buggies back out, completely ditch our technology and get off fossil fuels, save the planet. Right? But right now, what we have is an economy and people who sort of need to get from point A to point B. They need to either take the bus or the subway or drive a car. So the utility of the carbon tax, as I said before, is Justin Trudeau's fantasy, is this is how we're going to save the world, is in order to deter carbon use. The only place where we can deter carbon use by doing this is, maybe you've driven up the average gas bill so much that there is a father of three who works a middle-class job, and he can no longer afford to drive back and forth to work so much because you've increased the price of gas so highly that he now has to sort of get a bike or take the bus. Oh, great, you've just saved the planet because a middle-class family can't afford their car anymore. Yay. That's who you're attacking. It's the people who are on the brink. Right? This, when you want, again, Justin Trudeau's even acknowledged this. The point of the carbon tax is to use economic pressure to deter use of fossil fuels. However, fossil fuels are an absolute necessity, so there's no way we're getting off of them right now. However, what he's doing is sort of committing economic warfare to put people on the fringes of fossil fuel use into positions where they cannot use them. That is not the upper middle class. That is not the rich. That is not Bill Gates. That is not, George Soros. That is not Sheldon Adelson. I mean, he's dead. But you get what I mean. It's not the billionaires who will feel the heat of the carbon tax. That's why billionaires can be like, yes, I believe in the carbon tax. I believe in green policy because the green policies don't affect them, right? It's a few extra money. They know that by instituting green policies and heavy restrictions, what you're really doing is you're making it harder for people on the fringes. And then when you eliminate a lot of groups on the fringes or businesses on the fringes, that makes it so much easier for the people who own massive corporations like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos at Amazon to then monopolize the market. Because what you're doing with these stupid policies is killing small businesses. That kills the competition. that leads to oligopoly or monopoly. This is why you have big corporations in support of all these democratic policies, because they're great at killing the middle class. Who do you think is going to cheer the loudest when minimum wage goes to $15 an hour in the States? If your guess is anything other than Walmart, Costco, or Amazon, you're a crazy person. You're an absolute crazy person. Because just like the carbon tax, Walmart knows they can absorb this. They can absorb the minimum wage to $15 an hour or whatever. And even better is the mom and pop stores that can't absorb this, well, that just even further eliminates some competition. Then they make money back that they just increased on wages. They can either pass it off to the consumer down the road, but then they also make it back on increased market share because you've driven small businesses out of the market. And let's circle back to Erin O'Toole here. So Erin O'Toole knows all of this. Erin O'Toole's presented himself as a true blue conservative, right? He has marketed himself as this type of guy. And yet, here he is selling out the conservative movement to come towards the center, to try and hold more seats in Ontario. Now, from all internal polling and I've heard, there's massive panic. They've already started to pour all their resources into the West because they're afraid of losing to the Western movement. By the way, if you want my endorsement, right now my endorsement for the next party you should vote for, Western Separatist Party. Because of nonsense like this. I would vote for Wexit even though I'm on Ontario. And I think Wexit is actually the best vote to be making in the next election. If you care about conservative values, if you're a conservative, I would vote Wexit, what a Wild Rose, or Maverick Party. Why are they so stupid? Well, they're trying to lose. They're a Canadian political party, so they're trying to lose. But if the Wexit Party wasn't trying to lose, I'd feel more optimistic. The only chance they have is every other political party is actually trying to lose as well. So if they kept the name Wexit, then people would understand what the movement was instead of the Maverick Party, which has no name recognition. But again, they're a Canadian political party, which means they are trying to lose the election. Despite their best efforts at losing, I'm actually going to endorse them because I think the best vote you can make right now, if you want to see conservative values in the country, is to push Western separatism. Because the Conservative Party completely takes the West for granted. And that is sort of their excuse to veer to the left, is the West is so in our pocket that we don't need to appease them, right, that we can veer to the left. And I keep telling how this is actually bad short-term and long-term policy. I've gone over all the polling and the focus groups that help the Conservatives poison their own brand. But I'm going to go back to it sort of again on what I want the Conservatives to do. The way you grow new votes, right? There's the article coming out a couple weeks ago that Erin O'Toole has gotten no new voters. He has won no one to the Conservative side. That is because, just like Andrew Scheer's giant mistake, he has the same fatal flaw in the conservative movement. He is implicitly acknowledging that conservatism is unpalatable to the Canadian public and thus moving away from it. Humans are creatures and animals that have senses and all that. Well, if you sense that someone is insecure, you then have less confidence in someone. That's why you go to public speaking classes, they tell you to look confident, act confident, right? I talk fast and assertively. That makes you more likely to believe me, right? Do I even know what I'm saying? Who knows? Do I know what country this is? Barely. But I'm wearing a suit and pointing my fingers with authority, which means I know what I'm talking about. This is a great thing for the Conservative Party to learn. If you were to stand the ground of conservatism, if Erin O'Toole were to make the argument that I've made 8,000 times, that the green energy movement is not actually green, that recycling is bullshit, that you cannot sort of tax carbon in a nebulous way and have that in any way undermine consumption. If you could explain what the carbon tax is, it's just how it's going to increase the price of everything, how it actually works, how it makes no sense. Right? If he did a 2-minute sort of destruction of the carbon tax and said, no, I'm going to fight this, he'd win more people over because he'd say, no, this is wrong and I'm making a moral stand. Instead, what he's saying is, implicitly, he is saying, we know the conservatives and the liberals are more popular, so we're going to kind of go into there and try and like swim in their pond to sort of appeal to more people. That appeals to like this fictional, maybe 1% of GTA voters who see themselves as like swinging both ways. Again, these people are real. There are people who sort of swing this way who are like, I'm more liberal, but I could vote for who I see as more, red Tory-ish than the Conservative Party. They consume a lot of mainstream media, so they kind of go along with sort of how Canadian politics is portrayed on CBC. You do get those type of people, but they're not the majority. Like, to pretend that they're the deciding factor in the next election, I think is a bit asinine. And you win a lot more people by sort of selling your party and your values and then growing your base. The point of the Conservative Party, the way you win is you have to grow your base. You have to make it more appealing to other people. The way you make your party more appealing is not by adopting the values of the other parties, but in a half-hearted way, because then people intuit that that's the real thing, and they go, with someone's full heart. It's like Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau believes in destroying Canada wholeheartedly, so he'll do it. Whereas Erin O'Toole will destroy Canada half-heartedly. Now, they're both going to destroy Canada. This is why I'm not going to vote for either of them. But Justin Trudeau is more enthusiastic, so people will intuit that, oh, he's more confident, and what he's doing is better, so they'll vote for them. So that's how people work. So again, Erin O'Toole's had Wally Suleiman, close friend of the show. He watches every episode, or at least pays someone to. What a guy, keeping the numbers up. He was Patrick Brown's right-hand man. Patrick Brown was the first person to try and institute a carbon tax. Right? Dan Robertson, another carbon tax guy on his team. Right? Erin O'Toole's taken the Patrick Brown carbon tax team, and they're backing the carbon tax. And the article comes from Alex Boulier, who I think is quite reliable on this issue because he's been given the inside scoops on O'Toole stories before. Like, if the O'Toole campaign needs a good story in the Toronto Star, they will go to him. So this guy I do know that he does have connections inside the O'Toole campaign, which make me a lot more likely to believe that it is true that a lot of Conservative MPs are worried about Erin O'Toole stabbing them in the back and endorsing the carbon tax. Now, I'm not worried about Erin O'Toole stabbing us in the back because I already know he is, so I can't worry about it. He did it over a year ago. Over a year ago. And this is why I'm not like a full-on journalist, and I'm happy not to be. Like, sometimes I'm forced to do journalism, like tracking down the David Parker stuff and all that, blah, 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 blah. But if I was like a legit, took myself too seriously journalist, last year I couldn't have been like, oh, no, let's put A and B and C together, let's do the math. Yeah, Erin O'Toole is going to support the carbon tax. Here's the people on his team, don't trust him. Right? I have to be like, well, there's some legitimate questions to be brought up, and maybe let's just ask questions in a way. I can be like, because now I can be a self-righteous jackass, right, and a prima donna and say, I was right, I told you so, I said this over a year ago, right, and I can sort of be, a prissy, self-righteous prima donna, which I like to be, right, because that's what we need. That, if anything's going to save the country, it'd be me saying how right I was about everything, mostly Erin O'Toole.